Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we really get into the weeds of some fascinating material, hoping to pull out those insights that, help you feel truly informed.
Always a pleasure to dive in.
So today we're tackling something a bit different. Really wonderfully unexpected, actually. Forget the usual dense academic papers or, those complex geopolitical reports we sometimes grapple with.
Right.
Our source material today, it comes from a place you might not immediately think of for profound linguistic artistry. But trust me, it's there, and it is absolutely brilliant.
It really is an exceptional piece of communication. What we're about to unpack, it isn't just some clever turn of phrase.
Yeah.
It's it's an extraordinary feat of rhetorical skill.
Yeah.
A really deeply structured message that manages to encapsulate a powerful and I'd argue universally applicable philosophy of success.
Absolutely. That's our mission for this deep dive. To dissect, to appreciate this this amazing piece of linguistic art. And it comes, surprisingly, from the world of professional sports.
Which is part of what makes it so intriguing.
Right. Specifically from the NBA player Bam Adebayo. He's known for his formidable presence on the court, plays for the Miami Heat.
A powerhouse player.
Totally. And he crafted this alliterative passage. We've kind of titled it The Art of P. Adebayo's Alliterative Masterpiece. And here's the kicker, the really wild part.
Yeah.
It's built entirely, and I mean entirely, around the letter P, every single key word.
It's quite something. When I first came across this, my initial thought, probably much like yours, was just sheer fascination. Like, wow.
Definitely.
Because it's so easy to just dismiss extended wordplay like this as, maybe a simple gimmick. Something clever, sure, but ultimately a bit hollow underneath.
Right, style over substance.
Exactly. But when you actually dig into this particular piece, you realize very quickly it's anything but hollow. It's a real testament to intentional communication, to precision. And frankly, to the sheer power language. It has to, wrap up complex ideas in a way that really sticks.
It genuinely surprised me, too. The complexity, the depth woven into it. It wasn't just like a sentence or two of P words.
No, not at all.
It was sustained. A deliberate effort. A true linguistic workout that somehow also delivered this incredibly practical, profound message. So, as we go through this deep dive today, I really want you, our listener, to tune your ears in. Listen closely for those recurring P sounds.
Attention to that pulse.
Yeah, exactly. They're not just decoration. They are the persistent pulse, the sort of driving engine of this entire piece. It's almost hypnotic once you start listening for it. It kind of pulls you right in.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
That auditory experience, the sound of it, is a huge part of its impact. That consistent sound creates this kind of rhythmic drumbeat almost that helps anchor the message firmly in your mind.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The best way is probably just to dive right into the source itself.
Let's hear it.
To really appreciate Bam Adebayo's linguistic prowess here, you really need to hear the passage in its entirety. So as I read it, try to absorb the rhythm, the cadence, and of course that striking, relentless alliteration. Ready? Here it is.
Ready.
Piss poor performance produces pain. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. Purposeful progressive programming plants power, poise, plus prediction. Preparation pushes promise. Paying the price with prompt and persistent practice in pursuit of perfection and a powerful, pure, and precise presence puts pitiful portrayals in the past and perennially promotes prolonged, polished peak play that pours out positivity, pleases, packs a punch, pumps passion, propagates patience, preserves peace, permits prestige, and prompts praise.
Wow. Just hearing it again like that, the sheer density of those P sounds is, it's astounding.
Right.
It's almost physically demanding, just to say it clearly, which really makes you appreciate the effort that must have gone into actually crafting it in the first place. It really is something, isn't it? So as you just listened to that, what immediately jumped out at you? Was it just the sheer, almost overwhelming number of P words?
That's definitely part of it.
Or maybe that kind of rhythmic cadence. It sort of builds and builds through the passage.
The rhythm is undeniable.
Or was there maybe a particular phrase that just, stuck with you? For me, it was that feeling of being almost swept along by the sound itself, like a current. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. What's immediately fascinating, I think, is the undeniable impact of that alliteration. It's incredibly catchy, right? Super memorable.
Totally.
It's clearly designed to grab your attention and, crucially, to hold it. I mean, think for a second about how many motivational quotes or pieces of advice you've heard that just kind of wash over you.
Oh, tons. In one ear, out the other.
Exactly. They're forgotten almost instantly.
Right.
But this one Just by virtue of its unique structure, its sound, it forces you to pay attention. You have to lean in a bit.
Yeah, you do.
And there's also this really intriguing blend of language going on within the passage itself. You've got that very colloquial, almost blunt opening with piss poor.
Right, really jarring.
Followed pretty quickly by much more formal, almost, dare I say, poetic diction as it progresses.
Yeah, perennially promotes prolonged, polished peak play. That's quite different.
It's a really unexpected juxtaposition, that shift in register.
Yeah.
But it actually makes it even more powerful, even just on a surface level. It signals, I think, that this isn't just some flowery poem. It's something deeply practical, serious, and meant to have a real impact.
That blend is definitely something that stands out. It gives it this, I don't know, this grounded, almost street-level realism at the start. Yet it simultaneously reaches for something really aspirational and quite profound by the end.
Yeah.
It's not just a clever word game, like you said. It's absolutely loaded with meaning. It demands your attention.
Definitely commands attention.
So, okay, to truly appreciate this masterpiece, and yeah, I'm going to stand by that word here. We really need to break it down.
Take it piece by piece.
Yeah, it's like taking a really complex, intricately designed machine apart, gear by gear, just to truly understand how each little component contributes to the flawless operation of the whole thing.
Precisely. And despite that incredibly tight linguistic constraint, using almost exclusively P words, each segment, each phrase carries really specific weight and meaning.
It's not just random.
Not at all. And what's remarkable is how each phrase logically builds upon the last one. It creates this meticulously constructed, coherent argument rather than just, a jumble of words that happen to start with P. It's a real testament to deliberate thought and careful construction.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start right at the beginning with that really powerful, punchy opening line.
A piss-poor performance produces pain.
Boom! That immediately grabs you, doesn't it? 5 consecutive P words right out of the gate. It's stark, it's blunt. It uses that somewhat colloquial language. What's the immediate effect of starting with a phrase that direct, maybe even a little crude?
Well, it's incredibly effective, I think, because it establishes a clear, absolutely undeniable cause and effect relationship right away. No ambiguity.
Yeah. Substandard effort equals bad results.
Exactly. Substandard effort, or maybe a lack of real commitment, directly leads to negative outcomes, to actual pain. And the use of that colloquial or, as you said, crude language, it isn't accidental. It's not arbitrary.
It feels purposeful.
It serves to really emphasize the seriousness, the sort of unvarnished reality of inadequate preparation or lack of effort. It's like a splash of cold water, right? Designed to immediately cut through any complacency you might have and just highlight the severity of the problem.
Like a wake-up call.
Absolutely. Think about how warnings get delivered in really high-stakes environments. Maybe it's a coach yelling on the field, or a drill sergeant, or even a CEO addressing a team about poor results. Sometimes you need that blunt force to cut through the noise and really grab attention. This isn't some gentle suggestion he's making. It's a categorical statement of consequence. And the alliteration just amplifies it, making that pain feel more immediate, more concrete, almost unavoidable if you follow the piss-poor path.
That's a crucial point. It totally sets up the fundamental problem that the rest of the passage then systematically tries to solve. It gives context, a why, to everything that follows.
Precisely.
Which naturally leads us perfectly into the very next line. It feels like almost a direct counterpunch to that opening.
It does. Proper prior planning prevents piss-poor performance.
Okay, so right here, Adebayo immediately pivots. He gives you the solution. Now we have 6 consecutive P words building directly on the line before it. And it immediately brings to mind that really well-known adage, doesn't it? The 5 Ps.
It absolutely does. This directly invokes that classic military and business adage, proper planning prevents poor performance, often just called the 5 Ps. But what's particularly brilliant here, and I think what makes it so powerful, is how Adebayo actually reincorporates the piss-poor phrase from the very first line.
Yeah. He repeats it.
He does. And this creates a direct, really memorable contrast. It's almost a linguistic mirroring between the problem he just laid out and the precise solution he's now offering.
Problem, piss-poor performance. Solution, planning prevents piss-poor performance.
Exactly. So it's not just some generic solution he's throwing out there. It's a targeted, almost surgical answer to the specific pain he just described. And this personalization, weaving his own opening phrase back in, it makes the adage his own. It gives it this unique resonance within his overall message.
So it's a classic principle, but he's repackaged it, made it uniquely sticky with his own specific phrasing.
That's a great way to put it, sticky.
It's like he's saying, okay, remember that problem I just hit you with? Here's the exact way to avoid it. And it's so widely applicable too, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, whether you're an athlete strategizing for a huge game, or maybe an entrepreneur developing a new product launch, or you're preparing for a major presentation at work, heck, even just planning your family's weekly schedule.
Daily life.
Those 5 Ps are just a foundational principle for avoiding chaos. But Adebayo's phrasing here, it doesn't just state it, it kind of ingrains it through that repetition and sound.
It really drills it in.
So, okay, once we have that foundational planning principle in place, what does that proper planning actually entail? How do we put it into action? Where does it lead?
Well, that brings us neatly to the next part. Purposeful progressive programming plants, power, poise, plus prediction.
Now, this line really expands on the how of good planning, and it's got, what, 8 P initial words? That's impressive in itself.
8 is...
Purposeful progressive programming, that's quite a mouthful, but it sounds incredibly strategic, doesn't it? It's not just planning anymore. It feels like an ongoing, active, structured process.
It absolutely is. This introduces the really profound idea that effective planning isn't just a one-off event, like a checklist you tick off once and you're done.
Right.
Instead, it's about systematic, intentional development over time. The word programming itself strongly suggests a deliberate, structured, and consistent process, not just random, sporadic effort here and there.
Like coding success?
Kind of, yeah. Like designing a complex piece of software, or maybe more aptly for him, a meticulously crafted training regimen. It's about building a consistent, compounding pathway towards success.
Okay.
And the payoffs he mentions, power, poise, plus prediction, they're incredibly insightful and really well chosen, I think. They suggest this blend. You've got physical prowess, sure, the power.
Obviously important for an athlete.
Critically important, but also poise, that mental composure, staying calm under intense pressure. And prediction, which suggests strategic foresight, the ability to anticipate what's coming next, to read the game or the situation.
So it's a really holistic view of what gives you an edge. It goes way beyond just physical strength or speed.
Absolutely. It's a multifaceted competitive advantage.
You can vividly see how this applies to athletes, right? They meticulously program their training routines, their diet, their recovery periods, their mental prep.
Every detail matters.
But it extends so far beyond the court or the field. Think about any professional programming themselves for a big project or a career goal. It involves structured skill development, strategic prep for different scenarios, consistent learning, maybe deliberate networking.
It's all programming.
It's all about those intentional incremental improvements that when you stack them up day after day, they compound and lead to significant sustained gains. It's basically designing your own path to optimal performance.
Well put.
And then, after that complex phrase, we get this wondrously concise statement. It feels like a distillation of all that proactive effort.
Preparation pushes promise.
Just 3 words. But man, it really lands, doesn't it? It's almost a slogan in itself. Instantly memorable.
It's deceptively simple, but I think it's incredibly powerful. This phrase marks a fundamental shift in the narrative of the passage. While we move from avoiding failure, remember, preventing piss-poor performance, to now actively advancing one's capabilities and, crucially, unlocking one's potential. The promise.
Okay, from defense to offense, kind of.
Exactly. This is a statement of proactive growth. It's basically a declaration that your future achievements, your potential, your promise are directly proportional to the preparation you put in now.
So preparation isn't just insurance against failure.
No, it's fuel for success. It serves as this crucial little bridge in the passage, moving us from that defensive posture of preventing poor performance to the offensive forward-looking goal of achieving promise. It's all about realizing that preparation isn't just about security or avoiding the negative stuff. It's about actively creating and unlocking what's truly possible for you.
That distinction is really profound when you think about it. Avoiding failure versus actively pursuing possibility. It highlights the positive, the empowering side of all that hard preparation work. And all of that, the planning, the programming, the pushing of promise, it all leads into what I think is truly the centerpiece of this whole masterpiece, what you call the marathon sentence.
Yes, the big one.
It's an absolute beast. I mean that in the best possible way. And it feels like it embodies all the effort, all the principles described so far.
Indeed. Okay, get ready for this one, listeners, because it's a linguistic journey all by itself.
Let's hear it.
Paying the price with prompt and persistent practice in pursuit of perfection and a powerful, pure, and precise presence puts pitiful portrayals in the past and perennially promotes prolonged, polished peak play that pours out positivity, pleases, packs a punch, pumps passion, propagates patience, preserves peace, permits prestige, and prompts praise.
Wow. 43 P words in one single sentence. That is simply extraordinary.
It really is.
It builds from that initial investment, right, paying the price. Then it moves through the ongoing process, prompt and persistent practice. And then it just unleashes this torrent, this absolute waterfall of positive outcomes. It's almost breathtaking when you hear it read like that.
And what's truly fascinating when you listen closely is that rhythmic, almost hypnotic cadence created by the sustained alliteration. It doesn't just sit there on the page. It pulls you along. It builds momentum as it goes.
Yeah, it has a flow.
And the sheer volume, plus the incredible variety of positive results it describes, it's genuinely remarkable. It spans core athletic performance, prolonged polished peak play, which is key for him.
Right.
But it also encompasses crucial mental and emotional states like positivity and passion.
Mm-hmm.
It includes significant social benefits like pleases the audience and prompts praise, and even gets into professional recognition with permits prestige. It's just a complete, multifaceted picture of what success looks like and feels like, touching almost every aspect of one's being and impact.
It really feels like it embodies the culmination of all that effort, doesn't it? You can almost feel the entire journey packed into that single long sentence.
You can.
It's like this long, arduous climb, this continuous investment of effort that eventually breaks through into this multifaceted, overflowing, and deeply satisfying reward. And the sheer length of the sentence itself, it feels like it mirrors the prolonged effort and the persistent practice it advocates for.
That's a great insight. The form reflects the content again.
Yeah. It's not about a quick fix, or some sudden burst of genius. It's about enduring commitment that leads to an enduring, comprehensive payout. It's like the linguistic manifestation of persistence itself.
It's a powerful testament to the idea that true, lasting excellence is almost always a cumulative effect. It's built on sustained investment, relentless application, and eventually it yields that cascade of deeply positive results.
So, okay, we've spent some time breaking down the linguistic mechanics, the how of it, but now let's pivot a bit. Let's talk about the profound philosophy that's embedded within Adebayo's words.
Yes, because this goes far beyond just clever wordplay.
Absolutely. It's a remarkably comprehensive blueprint for success, really, and it feels applicable far, far beyond just the basketball court.
That's a really powerful point. What we've been calling the art of P is, I think, at its very heart, the art of success. It manages to distill these complex, fundamental principles of achievement into an incredibly memorable and impactful format.
Which makes them much more likely to actually stick with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More likely to influence how you think and act.
And the first principle that really jumps out at me, almost like the foundational structure of the whole thing, is what we could call the progression principle.
Yeah, that's clear. Adebayo outlines this very direct, very logical sequence. You start with problems, or the potential for problems, the pain. That leads you to planning. That planning requires a rigorous process, the programming and practice. And that process, in turn, inevitably leads to the payoffs, the positivity, prestige, praise.
Problem planning, process, payoffs.
Precisely. And this reflects that highly structured, almost systematic approach that you see in so many elite athletes. And frankly, in hugely successful individuals in almost any field. They consciously adopt this for their development.
They don't leave it to chance.
Not at all. They don't see success as some random outcome or, a lucky break or something that just happens to people. Instead, they view it as a linear, logical sequence of intentional interlocking steps. It's essentially a very clear, very detailed roadmap for achieving whatever your goals are.
And having that structured thinking, that roadmap, it can be incredibly powerful just psychologically, can it? In terms of reducing anxiety and maybe overcoming that feeling of being overwhelmed by a big goal.
Absolutely. Instead of feeling daunted by some grand, amorphous objective way out in the distance, it provides clear, actionable steps you can take right now.
Makes it manageable.
It takes something that seems overwhelmingly complex and breaks down into a tangible, manageable path forward. It makes the whole journey feel far more achievable. It really empowers you to just start, to take that first step.
And that clarity, that structured approach, it leads directly into what feels like the central theme of the entire passage, the preparedness mindset.
This is core.
The core idea here is that excellence isn't accidental. It doesn't just happen. It's deliberately cultivated through hard, anticipatory work. It almost feels like a moral imperative in the way he phrases it.
It really does. That stark contrast he sets up between the negative opening line, piss poor performance produces pain, and then the expansive, overwhelmingly positive possibilities that cascade through the rest of the passage. It creates this clear, undeniable choice for you, the listener.
Path A or path B.
Exactly. You can either choose the path of likely pain and regret through a lack of preparation, through being piss poor, or you can choose the path of possibility and fulfillment through proactive, dedicated effort, through proper prior planning.
It really frames preparation as the key differentiator.
It does. And this mindset stands in such direct opposition to just, winged approach or just hoping for the best when the pressure's on.
Which many people do.
Which many people do. But proactive preparation is just fundamental to high performance across the board. Why? Because it builds resilience. It drastically reduces uncertainty. And it allows for optimal execution when it actually matters most. It's all about controlling what you can control and doing so with real purpose and intention.
And what's particularly insightful, I think, is that it's not just about physical preparation, which is maybe what we'd first associate with a professional athlete.
Right. That's often the focus.
But there's a very strong emphasis threaded throughout this on what you could call holistic development.
Yes, this is fascinating. The benefits Adebayo describes, they extend far beyond just the physical side of performance. He explicitly includes crucial mental aspects like poise, that ability to maintain composure when everything's on the line.
Super important.
And patience, which is the endurance you need to stick with a long-term plan, even when results aren't immediate. He touches on vital emotional elements like passion and positivity, which are fuel for sustained motivation.
You need that fire.
Yeah, absolutely do. And he even includes social outcomes like pleases the crowd or stakeholders and prompts praise from others, recognizing that achievement often has a communal aspect and impact on those around you.
So it's the whole package.
It strongly suggests that Adebayo views athletic development, and probably success in general, as encompassing the whole person. Peak performance isn't just about physical prowess. It's truly a multidimensional endeavor. It requires building a robust internal framework, mental, emotional right alongside those external skills.
You're absolutely right. I mean, think about any high-pressure situation. Could be a championship game, could be a critical business negotiation, could be performing surgery.
High stakes.
Your mental and emotional well-being are absolutely critical to your physical or intellectual output in that moment. An athlete might be incredibly physically gifted, but without the poise to perform under that intense pressure, or maybe the patience to stick with a long, sometimes grueling training plan.
That talent might be wasted.
Exactly. That physical talent might never reach its full potential. It really is about building that robust internal framework alongside the external skills. And this ties directly into another key element, the delayed gratification philosophy.
Yes. That phrase, paying the price, is undeniably key here. It stands out.
It does.
It's such an explicit and, frankly, unflinching acknowledgement that excellence demands significant investment. It requires sacrifice. It often involves discomfort. And crucially, all of that comes before the rewards become apparent.
No shortcuts.
No shortcuts. This perfectly mirrors the disciplined mindset that's essential in professional sports, but honestly, it's universal. Think about the years, maybe decades, of unseen work, the rigorous training sessions nobody sees, the strict diets, the missed social events, the early mornings, the late nights.
The grind.
The grind. All of that precede those moments of public achievement and recognition, whether it's on the court or in the boardroom or on a stage. It's the secret to success that isn't really a secret at all.
It's just incredibly hard work.
It's just incredibly hard, persistent work that doesn't always offer immediate rewards. And notice the alliteration he uses there, prompt and persistent practice. It visually and sonically reinforces that continuous, demanding effort required.
It really hammers home that point. It's the countless hours in the gym when no one's watching. It's the dedication to recovery, the relentless study of film or data. Those are the prices paid. Those are the sacrifices made for the promise of peak performance later on.
Well said.
And that commitment, that willingness to pay the price, leads beautifully to the idea of sustainable excellence, not just a one-hit wonder.
Exactly. The terms he chooses in that final sentence, perennially and prolonged, are very deliberate, very powerful choices.
They stand out.
They suggest that excellence, when it's properly developed through this process, isn't fleeting. It's not just a flash in the pan. It's enduring, it's consistent, it's built to last.
Which makes sense for a pro athlete's career focus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This aligns perfectly with the career longevity focus you see in so many professional athletes. They aim to extend their prime years for as long as humanly possible, maintaining an elite level of play year after year after year. They don't just want one moment of glory.
They want a legacy.
They want a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's about building a lasting foundation, a system that supports consistent, high-level performance over a really extended period.
So it's not just about winning a championship once, maybe through luck or a hot streak. It's about being a perennial contender, being a player or a professional in any field who consistently performs at an elite level, season after season, project after project.
That's the goal.
And what kind of ongoing commitment does that perennial success demand? It implies this unending dedication to the process, doesn't it? A constant striving for improvement, never just resting on past laurels or getting complacent.
It's a continuous cycle.
It's a real testament to the discipline required for true lasting greatness. And okay, finally, there's this really fascinating meta-level insight here that I think makes this passage even more profound. It's the mental technique of the passage itself, how it's constructed.
Ah, yes. This is where it gets really interesting, and I think it's a profound takeaway for absolutely anyone listening.
Explain that.
By choosing to use this incredibly elaborate, incredibly constrained form, the alliteration Adebayo is demonstrating a rhetorical technique that itself requires immense planning, meticulous precision, and really purposeful effort to pull off.
It's just writing it must have been hard work.
Exactly. In doing so, he literally embodies the very qualities, the planning, the precision, the persistence that he describes in the passage. The form of his message, its intricate, precise, deliberately constructed nature, perfectly reinforces the content of the message, which is all about the importance of precision, planning, and purposeful effort.
Wow. So the medium is the message, in a way.
It's a perfect example of that. It's a masterclass in meta-communication.
So it's not just what he says, but the very way he says it that drives the point home with such incredible force. The sheer intellectual and linguistic effort he must have put into crafting this piece mirrors the sustained physical and mental effort he advocates for in achieving peak performance.
It's a kind of self-referential triumph.
It really is. It's a testament to the idea that rigorous constraints, perhaps surprisingly, can often lead to greater clarity, creativity, and profound impact. It's a powerful lesson, actually, for how we as listeners can maybe approach our own communication.
How so?
By thinking about not just the words we choose, but how their very presentation, their structure, their form can amplify or even embody their meaning.
That's a fantastic point about communication strategy.
Okay, now let's just take a moment to truly marvel at the sheer technical genius behind Adebayo's creation here. Because this really does go beyond just being clever or, a fun bit of wordplay you might see online.
Oh, absolutely.
This feels like a legitimate literary feat, a display of linguistic mastery that, frankly, very few people could replicate successfully.
It genuinely does. And what's fascinating, again, is that it's not just a dry linguistic exercise. It feels like a demonstration of profound, almost intuitive mastery of the English language. Like a great musician who understands their instrument so deeply, they can create something completely unprecedented with it.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And the first thing that just hits you, as we've talked about, is the extraordinary, sustained commitment to that single P sound. It is relentless.
Relentless is the word. The most immediately striking aspect is just the sheer scale and the unwavering consistency of the alliterative pattern. I mean, most alliterative passages you encounter, whether it's in literature or rhetoric, they typically feature maybe just a few consecutive words with the same initial sound.
Or they mix it up.
Or they mix it up, or they have alternating patterns where the alliteration appears for a bit and then fades out. But Adebayo's passage maintains perfect P alliteration across, roughly 70 keywords, without a single break in that pattern.
70 words. That's incredible.
This level of sustained dedication to a single sound, while somehow still maintaining coherent meaning and flow, is incredibly rare. Even if you look back at classical alliterative poetry traditions, like in Old English.
Like Beowulf.
Exactly, like Beowulf. The requirements there were often much looser, maybe just hitting the stressed syllables in a line. This is something else entirely.
I mean, Just trying to speak that passage fluently without stumbling, like I probably just did,
Uh-huh. It's tricky.
let alone compose it in the first place, is a significant challenge. It demands incredibly precise articulation. It's almost like a tongue twister, but one that carries this really deep meaning.
Right.
It makes you realize the breath control and the careful precision that must have gone into not just writing it down, but also potentially delivering it effectively.
And that technical challenge leads right into its remarkable technical complexity without sacrificing meaning. Because what could so easily just become a gimmick, right? Just a string of nonsense words designed purely for the phonetic effect.
Yeah, Peter Piper picked a peck.
Exactly. Instead, this remains remarkably coherent, surprisingly profound, and logically structured from beginning to end.
It really does. Despite that extreme constraint using almost exclusively P words in those key positions, Adebayo demonstrates truly remarkable linguistic skill. For one thing, there's incredible grammatical variety. He incorporates a full range of parts of speech. You've got nouns like performance, pain, planning. You've got verbs, produces, prevents, plants, adjectives, proper, prior, piss poor, even adverbs like perennially.
He's building real sentences.
He's creating full, grammatically sound, well-built sentences, not just, lists of P words strung together. Then there's the impressive semantic range.
Yes, the meaning shifts.
The passage doesn't just keep repeating similar words or concepts related to P. It intelligently progresses through distinct semantic fields. It goes from failure and pain to planning and process, then to practice, then to all those positive outcomes, moving from physical benefits to psychological ones. It covers a lot of ground.
And crucially, throughout all that, it maintains logical flow. This is where a lot of extended wordplay or highly constrained writing falls apart. It sacrifices coherence just for the sake of sticking to the technique.
Right, it becomes nonsensical.
But this passage somehow retains a clear argumentative structure and a natural progression of ideas, all while strictly adhering to its phonetic constraint. It makes sense as a piece of advice.
And finally, there's that masterful register variation we touched on earlier.
The shift in tone.
Yeah, the passage moves from that very colloquial, very blunt, piss-poor opening to much more formal, almost elevated diction later on, in phrases like perennially promotes prolonged, polished peak play.
It's quite a lead.
That surprising shift between casual, everyday language and something much more formal, almost poetic, all within that tight constraint.
Yeah.
It just shows remarkable versatility and control over language.
It really does.
And that combination, the extreme linguistic constraints on one hand, and the flawlessly successful execution on the other, that's truly what elevates this work from just being a clever gimmick to being a legitimate literary feat, I think.
Geiger.
He's basically proving that you can be incredibly precise and even playful with language without ever losing your core message. In fact, you can actually enhance it, make it more powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the rhetorical sophistication here is just, well, it's off the charts.
How so, specifically?
Well, think about how that alliteration serves multiple rhetorical functions all at the same time, which makes the message incredibly potent and effective. Firstly, as we've said, it has a powerful mnemonic effect.
Makes it memorable.
Hugely memorable.
Yeah.
The extensive repetition of that P sound creates an incredibly strong memory aid. Military units and sports teams have long used alliterative phrases precisely because they stick in your mind. Think of the original proper planning prevents poor performance.
Right.
Adebayo takes that proven concept and pushes it to an extreme, making his entire philosophy incredibly sticky and almost unforgettable once you've heard it a few times. Secondly, there's a distinct rhythmic escalation.
The build-up.
Yeah, the passage clearly builds from those short, punchy, almost staccato statements at the beginning. Piss-poor performance produces pain, to that extraordinarily long, flowing, culminating sentence at the end. This creates a kind of rhythmic intensification that perfectly mirrors its message about building momentum through persistent, prolonged practice. The very structure of the sentences echoes the sustained effort it describes.
That's brilliant. And the sonic reinforcement, too, the sound itself.
We touched on this, but it's worth emphasizing. That plosive P sound, phonetically, requires a burst of air from your lips. It's a small explosion of effort just to make the sound.
You feel it.
You feel it. It physically embodies the theme of forceful, deliberate action. You actually have to exert yourself slightly more to say P clearly and repeatedly, just as you have to exert yourself physically and mentally to achieve what the passage describes. It's almost a physical echo of the content.
Wow, I never thought of it that way.
And finally, even within its unique form, it maintains a classical persuasive structure. Think about it. The passage moves logically from identifying the problem, the pain of poor performance. Then it offers the solution, proper planning. Then it outlines the necessary process, prompt and persistent practice. And then it culminates by detailing the vast array of rewards, praise, prestige, peace, and so on.
Problem, solution, process, reward.
Exactly. It follows the classical persuasive arc, guiding the listener through a logical, compelling argument for why this approach works, all while maintaining that incredibly stringent alliterative constraint.
So it's not just memorable because of the sound, it's incredibly persuasive and impactful because you're drawn in by that sound, and then you're convinced by the underlying logic of the argument. And just on a purely technical level, as a rare technical achievement, this piece is kind of mind-blowing in its execution, isn't it, when you look closely?
It really is, especially when you consider some of the subtle but crucial linguistic hurdles he overcomes. For instance, think about English prepositions. Very few commonly used prepositions start with P. You've basically got past, per, maybe pending.
Not many options there.
Very limited.
Yeah.
Yet the passage manages to incorporate complex prepositional phrases like in pursuit of perfection or in the past, while somehow flawlessly maintaining the alliterative pattern where it needs to. This indicates an incredible linguistic dexterity and almost intuitive grasp of how English syntax works and how to navigate its constraints.
Finding those P words in the right places?
Finding them and making them sound natural. Similarly, most extended wordplay like this relies heavily on content words, nouns, verbs, adjectives. But this passage even manages to find P alternatives for some function words, like using plus instead of and, or the verb puts. These kinds of words typically have very limited substitution options if you're sticking to a phonetic rule.
He must have a great vocabulary.
An exceptional vocabulary range, definitely. And perhaps most impressively, despite that extreme constraint and the significant length of the piece, there is remarkably minimal repetition of specific P words. I think only performance, poor, and forms of the word practice appear more than once.
That's amazing across 70 words.
It really is. It showcases not just vocabulary, but a deep, intuitive mastery of language that goes far beyond just simple word choice. He's manipulating the language with incredible skill.
It's like watching a grandmaster chess player who decides to win a game using only their pawns, but somehow still achieves this elegant, powerful victory. It just highlights his intuitive understanding of the English language and its nuances, even under this immense self-imposed pressure.
That's a perfect analogy.
And just to put this whole thing into a bit of comparative context, this isn't just impressive for an athlete writing something clever. This is extraordinary, period, when you compare it to other examples.
Right. To truly appreciate how remarkable it is, you really need to consider its place against some historical benchmarks in literature. Think about classical alliterative poetry traditions, like we mentioned with Old English or Old Norse poetry.
Yeah.
Typically, the rules there required maybe only one or two alliterative words per line, often just falling on the main stressed syllables. It wasn't about every single word starting with the same letter.
Much looser.
Much looser. Even someone like Shakespeare, who was obviously renowned for his linguistic genius and his love of wordplay, very rarely sustained a single alliterative sound for more than a few words in a row without breaking the pattern or, more importantly, sacrificing the clarity or naturalness of the meaning.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think of a famous line like, "From forth the fatal loins of these two foes," from Romeo and Juliet. It's powerful alliteration, payoff sounds, but it's relatively brief in its sustained intensity compared to Adebayo's marathon.
Okay, yeah, I see the difference.
And then you have modern tongue twisters like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. They prioritize difficulty of pronunciation above all else. They're usually much shorter, and they're far less semantically complex. Their main goal isn't really to convey deep meaning or a logical argument.
Just to trip you up.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But Adebayo's passage somehow manages both aspects, doesn't it? It is challenging to pronounce rapidly and clearly, but it's also incredibly meaningful, perfectly coherent, and carries this profound philosophical weight.
Yeah, it succeeds on both levels.
So this comparison really solidifies that his passage is extraordinary, not just within the realm of sports rhetoric, where it's already unusual, but within the broader context of alliterative writing throughout literary history. It definitively shows that alliteration, when wielded with this kind of skill and purpose, can function as far more than just mere decoration or a sound effect.
It can be the whole framework.
It can serve as a sophisticated rhetorical framework that actually enhances both the memorability and the profound meaning of a message. elevating it to entirely new heights.
Mm.
Hashtag check outro.
Wow. Okay, so as we bring this deep dive to a close, it feels abundantly clear that Bam Adebayo's alliterative passage, this art of P, it functions on multiple really powerful levels simultaneously.
It really does pack a punch, pun intended.
Huh, it really does. It's a deeply motivational mantra for sure. It's a comprehensive training philosophy, and it's an undeniable rhetorical showcase of linguistic skill. Fundamentally, it just reiterates that profound and, let's face it, timeless connection between meticulous preparation and eventual peak performance. And that's a principle that applies to literally any pursuit of excellence, whether you're on a basketball court, in a classroom, navigating the boardroom, or just dealing with challenges in your personal life.
That's a crucial insight to take away. And what's particularly fascinating, going back to the form, is how that extensive alliteration, while technically impressive, also serves that vital purpose we discussed.
Oh.
It makes the underlying message incredibly sticky.
Hard to forget.
It's designed to resonate with you long after you hear it, to be remembered, and ultimately, hopefully, to influence your behavior and your whole approach to challenges. The progression that Adebayo meticulously charts, starting from that stark warning of piss-poor performance produces pain, and moving all the way to the expansive possibilities of prolonged, polished peak play.
It's quite a journey.
It truly reflects the transformative potential he sees in disciplined, intentional development. It's clearly a mindset that has been absolutely fundamental to his own success as an elite NBA player, and it's a mindset that's ultimately available to all of us in any field.
That's empowering. And so, as you, our listener, reflect on this amazing piece of writing, I invite you to maybe consider, what might your own P-word philosophy look like for your current goals or challenges?
Interesting question.
How can you begin to apply Adebayo's progression principle, that clear idea of problems leading to planning, which leads to process, which leads to payoffs? How can you apply that structure to your own life, whatever your current big challenge might be?
Making it practical.
Yeah. Or maybe, how can you consciously cultivate that preparedness mindset, proactively anticipating and planning for what might come rather than just reacting to obstacles as they inevitably arise?
Shifting from reactive to proactive.
Exactly. Actively seek out how meticulous preparation, that deliberate paying of the price through prompt and persistent practice, how that can truly transform your current challenges into profound, prolonged successes down the line. Think about it. What are you preparing for right now, and how can you ensure that your performance isn't just good enough, but truly aiming for that polished peak play? The language itself, in this case, really does offer the blueprint.